Let's speak to one of the growing number of people who it seems has fallen out with Nigel Farage. Ben Habib is the former deputy leader of Reform UK. Good to have you with us on the programme tonight, Ben. We'll start with Zia Yusuf. How big a blow to reformer Nigel Farage is his resignation this evening?
Well, time will tell. I'm sure Farage is reflecting on how best he can handle the media fallout from the resignation. But the real issues are the ones that you've already rhetorically asked the questions of, which is, whether a man who's only got 5 MPs and can't seem to manage them is going to be capable of creating a cabinet of people to govern the country. That's the real issue here. It's not so much about falling out with me or Rupert Lowe and Zia Yusuf, but what that says about Farage himself. And, we have to remember that reform is Farage and Farage is reform. They're synonymous. Like every entity with which Farage has been associated before in his political career, he's never, ever developed a capable, broad, and deep team around him. It's always been the Farage dog and pony show. I think you called it a circus. You had music from a circus as the introductory
We
music
did
to the
indeed.
show, and you've called that right. And the real takeaway, if I were Nigel Farage, if there's a moment of genuine introspection that comes about as a result of what's just happened today and what happened to Rupert Lowe and myself and others before that, if there's a moment of introspection, what it shouldn't be about is how do I now manage the media fallout? What it should be about is how the devil does this keep happening to me? And what do I need to do to make sure that I can take good people on into the party, encourage them to do great things for the party and the country, and keep them in situ? How do I create a political philosophy which will bind a team capable of governing the country? And what do I need to do to create the foundations of a constitution, checks and balances and processes in a party that won't result in an MP, a sitting MP, asking a question which offends the chairman, prompting the chairman to say something in public, castigating a sitting MP, and then resulting in the resignation of the
Is
chairman
Nigel
on the same
Farage,
day?
from your experience of working alongside him, Ben, is Nigel Farage capable of that sort of introspection?
Well, I don't think he is. I mean, frankly, he can't be. He's 60 years old. Every party with which he's been associated has had exactly the same issues. And he was asked tonight on GB News whether he would, reconcile with Rupert Lowe. And he said he'd rather eat razor blades. I mean, what kind of response is that? Fine, he doesn't like Rupert Lowe, I get it. But that's just an adolescent, childish response. Reflect for a second, Nigel Farage. Rupert Lowe was one of your 5 MPs. He was a great MP. Whether or not you like his politics, that's different. But he asked 900 written questions in the 6 months in which he was an MP. He's done great things for the party. It's not a responsible, serious comment to say I'd rather eat razor blades. And it says to me, Ben, and I'm sure it does to any sane minded individual, that he is not prepared to be introspective. He's not prepared to reflect.
So,
The common thread here in all these difficulties that reform faces is Farage. That's the common thread.
what, in the sense that this sort of allegation that he cannot abide, he cannot bear anybody around him who in any way dares or threatens to overshadow him, he has to be the only man in town, Ben. Is that the problem as you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fundamental problem. The other problem is he's a political expedient. He doesn't have a political philosophy. So he's reacting to the news cycle. And that creates the kind of problem you've just seen with Sarah Potchin asking at PMQs about the burqa. Now, Reform UK is a party which has talked incessantly, and in my view correctly, about the challenges created by multiculturalism. If multiculturalism is the challenge that Reform UK, in my view, correctly believes it
Yes.
to be, they should have joined up thinking already on the burqa. A question about the burqa, which was clearly a criticism by Sarah Potchin of the burqa, a criticism by a sitting MP in reform of the burqa, shouldn't cause the chairman to,
But there's a contrast here, isn't there? Because what Zia
yeah.
Yusuf and Nigel Farage and his team would say they are trying to do is professionalise this party so much, Ben, that they are on the verge of taking into government. And that does involve some compromise. It does involve perhaps sort of smoothing some of your rougher edges and tempering some of your more extreme positions.
Absolutely.
And to be fair to Nigel Farage, despite all the criticism that you and others are levelling at him, it seems to be working right now.
No, but it isn't. I mean, he's fantastic at the media. He's terrific at campaigning, and the polls reflect a complete disillusionment with Labour and the Tory party, and therefore backing of Reform UK. But what he's singularly failing to do is to create, whether or not you think the burqa, wanting to ban the burqa is an extreme policy. By the way, France and a number of other countries have banned it. But that's kind of academic. The point is Reform UK should have joined up thinking on the burqa. You can't talk about multiculturalism being such a big problem without the party already having a formed view on the question of the burqa. And it clearly doesn't. So they haven't sat down as a group of people and discussed this seriously. Sarah Potchin asked a question at PM, very serious, by the way. When you ask a question at PMQs,
yes, but Zia Yusuf's objection to it was it's not party policy, it's not reform policy to ban the burqa.
Okay,
so for a new MP to stand up and propose it when it's not the party policy looks amateurish, which it does, doesn't it?
It absolutely does look amateurish. It's equally amateurish that Zia Yusuf should tweet about it. There should be some self-discipline. There should be some processes and checks and balances in the party. There aren't. Nigel Farage should be the chief executive organizer, the controller, if you like, of reform, but he should be setting, like any chief executive, he should be setting a structure up for his organization that allows it to be governed in a proper way. It isn't. It's just Nigel Farage and a few mavericks.
Well, let me ask you about that, because Rupert Lowe has come out and said that reform is nothing more than a cult, a Nigel Farage cult. Would you echo that, Ben?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
You think it's a cult? He calls Nigel
absolutely.
Farage a viper and a coward. I mean, that's strong language. Is that fair?
Viper, I'm not sure about. Coward, I would probably agree with, yeah.
You think
I
Nigel
think the
Farage
man...
is a coward?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I think the way that he's not prepared to have a proper discussion about, for example, Rupert Lowe saying, he'd rather eat razor blades than address the issue. That kind of childish behavior is cowardly. You're ducking the issue. You're ducking the debate. You're just having a crack at Rupert Lowe, the individual, the human being. That's not proper politics.
So the idea of the question we're asking about whether Nigel Farage is fit to govern, Ben, I think we can assume your answer is no.
Yeah, unless he has this, Damascene conversion towards introspection and realizes actually, this is very serious, Ben. They're polling 30% in the polls. They could form the next government.
Yep.
He has an obligation to the country to take the position he now holds extremely seriously. It cannot just be about him. He needs to make sure that he surrounds himself with capable people who could form a cabinet, that have a joined up political philosophy, and that have a format through which they can work without this kind of lack of discipline. And he's doing none of that.
Would you be one of them, Ben, if he asked you, if he said, Ben, please come back, I want you as part of my team?
In the absence of a proper constitution, proper checks and balances and processes, and an explanation as to what Nigel Farage and the party stand for, I would not go back. No, okay. I need to see a party that's grown up. Frankly, it was much more grown up under Richard Tice, who understood the need to build a broad and deep team of people around him. Farage doesn't see that.
Really interesting. Ben, thank you for coming on and talking to us tonight. Ben Habib, former Deputy Leader of Reform UK. This is a theme, isn't it? You've got Ben there, who was former Deputy Leader of Reform. You've got Rupert Lowe, former MP Reform. You now got the guy who until this morning was party chairman, saying it's not worthy of his time. So many of the people who Nigel Farage worked closely with are now saying, do not give this guy your vote. He is not fit to govern. Is that a surefire sign, as sure as they come, that they are right? That Reform right now, at least, is completely unfit to lead this country? Or do you think this is all just a storm in a teacup? This is a media circus. This is a sort of a witch hunt, maybe even, against Nigel Farage. Are you still very much firmly entrenched on the Reform Party bandwagon?